Welcome back to the show. It has been quite a heated debate discussing the fate of Rigathi Gachagua. Now let's get into the crux of this philosophy. What is one man, one shilling, one vote? Why are some people praising it and others calling it the salvation mostly of Mount Kenya? Bwana Samba, one man, one shilling, one vote seems fair. Unless we're talking about gender parity, then we say one man, one woman, one vote. But generally, it seems fair. Why are some politicians against it, and why are some for it?
I think, one, because it has been created within a political context, more than the economic component. Because the whole discussion around one man, one vote, one shilling has been centered around mobilizing the Mount Kenya bloc. And like I said, I gave it, a perspective from pre-election. Now we are discussing it post-election. And remember, some of the people pushing it today were opposing it last when BBI was being fronted. So clearly you can see it's not a very genuine discussion around it, because the genuine foundation in terms of the discussion would have been driven by, if you ask me, qualified experts, economic people with a strong economic background who can then, shape a narrative that can inform debate. But where we are right now, it's more perceived as a Mount Kenya conversation. That's why you see the country is starting to also disintegrate. Your Northeastern are reading from a different script saying that if you push this, you disadvantage us. And you'll see other regions equally coming out to say, are you guys just rooting for yourself? So it's a very sensitive issue. That's why it has mixed reaction, because on one part, people are looking at it within as a central issue. The other part, people are looking at it within the bigger picture of the country. Is it something that can be so divisive? Because resource sharing is fundamental. I mean, it's the basics of it. And there are historical issues around it, from communities feeling marginalized over the years, because of the imbalanced allocation of resources. So when you bring this kind of a discussion, I wish we were doing it outside the political space, so that now we can be very objective in our assessment, because a very healthy debate, let's give it to the proponents, it's a very healthy debate that everyone should weigh on it. Because on one part, it makes a lot of sense. Why is it that some communities, some areas are so heavily populated, yet they're getting the same share of revenue with communities that otherwise, are very small in numbers. So it's a very healthy economical debate. But now the problem we're having, if you keep pushing it within the political space, within the political narrative, the risk is that it can be very divisive. Because you remember, we are coming from the days of Pwani si Kenya. And that discussion was informed by what? Some Kenyans feeling like they don't belong here because they're disadvantaged in terms of resource allocation. So it's a very critical issue that I would really urge. Probably even the president needs to come out and now properly pronounce himself by providing guidance. Like if it means settling it at the level of creating a bipartisan platform for Kenyans to have a candid discussion, then present to the country, a proposition. The same way BBI had presented a proposition. Because it's not like, Mark, we are coming from a place where we don't have a formula for revenue sharing. We already have, we have an existing formula. It's been working to a certain extent. There are areas that are weak that we can improve on. So first of all, have we even interrogated the current existing formula? So that now we say, this one has totally failed. Some of these discussions are actually supposed to be addressed by BBI. That's why we passed not BBI, by the concept of devolution. That's why we passed the 2010 constitution. Because again, the debate, same debate, was that we have a very imbalanced way of resource allocation.
But I don't think they are saying that they want to change the entire system. Let's see whether we can get Shimeha on the line. And Shimeha, as you get online, the other thing you must also discuss is the issue of one man, 1 kilometer versus one man, one shilling, and the proponents of one man, one shilling saying the guys of 1 kilometer have an equalization fund. Shimeha, please give us some light into this issue.
Thank you very much. I hope now it's clear. I hope we have sorted out that technical problem with sound. And to the best of my knowledge, this so-called one man, one vote, one shilling is actually a political question. It has an economic dimension because it's a factor used in formulas for resource allocation, but has majorly in this country been used as a political tool. Meaning that we argue on the basis of our numbers, that numbers should triumph over everything else. That if in this region or in this community, we have this many numbers, nothing else should matter. We should get the giant share of the revenue of this nation. But that's not fair. That's not, and it's a question we've dealt with. We dealt with this question in 2010 during the constitution making process, and we put in place the Commission for Revenue Allocation, which comes up with a formula which every so often it reviews and works on it together with Parliament, which includes the National Assembly and the Senate. So for me, it's disingenuous for someone like the Deputy President or anyone else, who thinks that they must keep throwing this question of numbers in people's faces. We've faced this before. We've been told about the tyranny of numbers and so on. That's not the only thing that matters in human development. It's important. Population is important, absolutely. But when you want to develop a nation equitably or a county equitably, then other factors have to be taken into consideration. My feeling is that the Deputy President came into this position without a local constituency. Now he got this position of Deputy President on the basis of other factors. It could have been how much he financed the campaign. I don't know what it was, because he wasn't really a factor in terms of mobilization of votes in what they like to call Mount Kenya region or any other region. So perhaps it could be the financing. So he got into this position and he's feeling insecure. He would like to develop a constituency. And where else to start other than at home? And that, I think, is his way, is in his imagination of appealing to his local Kikuyu constituency, and then perhaps the others that call themselves Mount Kenya or Gema, so that he can then feel like he has weight and he can bargain at the national level with his boss and colleagues within cabinet and political colleagues. However, my caution to him is a Deputy President. Colleagues, for me, in my experience in politics, in my observation, to the best of my knowledge, a deputy or vice president is just a deputy or vice president. It's just an assistant. It's too ambitious and putting on expectations that may never be met. If you think your office should also be a source of political power, and you can use it to bargain for your local constituency. So if he wants to bargain for his local constituency, a deputy president's office is not the right office. He would have to try something else. That is my opinion.
That is quite interesting, Shimea. And for me, what I'm seeing is the political side of this argument is far outweighing the merits or demerits of this financial question. But don't you think, Bwana Shimea, that this country, for once, is having grown-up conversations? We are not just discussing politics, we are discussing the politics of resources and their distribution. And at the same time, Shimea, as a governance expert, we've seen even the governor in Nyanza, who was taken to Orengo, was taken to the Senate to be reported by his deputy for mistreating him. What is going on with this deputy position? Is it a cursed chalice? A poisoned chalice?
A poisoned chalice. But let me start with the first question on whether we are having a mature discussion. Right now, I don't think it's a mature discussion. Right now, I think it's, the issue is legit. The issue is legitimate, it's valid, it's a valid political issue, for discussion at the national level or within counties. It's absolutely valid. But the manner in which it's being introduced and the person introducing it is where the problem is, and the timing of its introduction. It's a question we've grappled with before. I heard you earlier, the panel in the studio, speak about BBI. Unfortunately, a lot of things that were spoken within BBI were muzzled by the more political stuff to do with constitutional changes and so on. But it was a question in the policy debate. It came up as a question. And it was debated very extensively, very exhaustively, by governors, by senators, by people from different parts of the country. And the consensus with that, and this is within the policy framework of what then was BBI, the consensus was population cannot trump everything else. You must factor in other factors that the Commission for Revenue Allocation has put on the table, and they've been debated by our National Assembly and Senate. So whereas it's legitimate and genuine, the timing of it being pushed onto the discussion table, and the one who is pushing it onto the discussion table, much as he has a right to participate in national debates, therein lies the problem. Because then it makes him refer to his local constituency. He's a deputy president. He finds himself, for example, why isn't he using 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling with reference to Western Kenya, Luhyaland? We are so many, probably more than Kikuyus. Why is Rigiji not referring to Luyas and saying, I want to see Luyas gain based on this 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, 1 wife, and I don't know what else? He's only referring to Kikuyus. That is the problem. The framing and the manner in which he is introducing it is what is extremely problematic. You asked me whether this deputy position is a poisoned chalice. I don't think it is, excuse me for that. I think it's just failure to accept that it's a position with limitation. It's very limited. Observe Kamala Harris, Kamala Harris in the US. Observe any other deputy. Observe Museveni's deputy, vice presidents. Observe Tanzania, any other country, for goodness sake. It's not a position of immense power. It's literally a position of an assistant. And the moment people get into it, and then they want to begin to develop, power bases, they also want, for example, the current one probably is looking at William Ruto. Let me explain, by the way, some difference between Rigiji coming into this position and William Ruto. William Ruto came into this position with a constituency already to bargain with. He had tumbled and tussled with Raila Odinga from the days of ODM. He had managed to wrestle a bit of the Rift Valley support from ODM and Raila. And so he was joining with Uhuru Kenyatta with already a constituency. But ordinarily, deputies don't come into office with constituencies. They're just chosen more or less for, to give, for public show, to give a reflection that, we have someone from this region, or maybe because of financing. Remember, Rigiji was not someone who even his own region wanted.
Shimera, you have given us quite incisive points there, and I'm quite curious to hear from Odede about this issue. Yesterday there was a hashtag, I am a villager. Yes. I don't know whether you saw that. Everyone and their sister became a villager. Is Kenyan politics village politics, or is it nationalistic politics? Are we hiding away from our positive ethnicity and you're assuming all ethnicity is negative? Gigi has been called a tribalist, okay?
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think we have not put the Kenyan person in the middle of our politics. Our politics is still around the leaders, and that is why we have a problem. Because why would, for example, right now, the deputy president and the president and leaders from across the divide have a tussle about this thing, and they all purport it is about common mwananchi, when common mwananchi has not even come out in any forum to complain about the whole thing. I think the time we will have it better is when the common mwananchi will be in the middle of our politics. Right now, the politics is still, even if I project things and move it the direction of common mwananchi, but deep in my heart, it is still about me somehow. How is it going to turn out for me at the end? So I am not pushing the agenda with clear mind and heart that this is about the people, and I don't care what becomes of me after that, as long as the people are sorted. So that is not what is going on. But Mark, for me, it is still wrong, both the 1 man, 1 shilling, or 1 man, 1 kilometer, 1 vote, whatever, all of them still looks wrong to me. Because the 1 man, 1 shilling is, you see, this whole problem started when some of the elites of our nation brought the tyranny of numbers. This is a problem we started from the tyranny of numbers. So the tyranny of numbers, whether was proven scientifically or not, engineered the country towards a certain thinking, that certain parts of this country have more people than the rest of the country combined. So this is what is in the head of anybody coming from Mount Kenya, that we are many. So when the narrative of one man, one vote, one shilling is brought, it is supposed to make us get more money than we are getting now. And the other side of the country are feeling like it is supposed to take more money in that direction than our direction.
Yeah.
So the person who gave us the narrative of tyranny of numbers is the person who brought the problem we are now trying to deal with. It served very well for that time, but now it is the same people it served is the same people it is now giving the problem, if you remember. Now, the 1 kilometer, one thing, is also not solving the problem anyway, because we can still ask, 1 kilometer in North Hor has how many homesteads? Compared to my village in Awendo, I'm also a villager now. I'm also getting into the village now. So in my village in Awendo,
Yes.
1 kilometer can have so many homes. And every home has a household with an average of around 4 or 5 people.
Yes.
Mother, father, and maybe 3 children around there. So if you now talk about 1 kilometer, why do we need to give you a 1 kilometer with 2 homes or no home at all? Because some places in this country, 1 kilometer stretch has no home completely. So why should we be putting money in a 1 kilometer with nobody,
Yeah.
when we have somewhere in Budalangi where there is 1 kilometer and 20 homes? So those are all conversations we need to. So for me, none of these two is a good formula for the country. I would have loved us to go back to devolution and look at how devolution, audit devolution properly, and see some of the functions that national government has not accepted to relieve completely to the county government, and also look at the issue of corruption in the county governments and see how do we tighten everything around the governance at the county level, so that whatever is pushed to the county in terms of allocation is actually getting to the people. Because the whole idea of getting devolution was to get governance closer to the people, and that governance was not about talking, it was about service. So we were supposed to, that is why they devolved things like health, which is a very critical thing. So we could have seen 10 years after devolution, or more than 10 years after devolution, do we devolve more?
Yeah.
Like in the sector of education. Right now, the county government only has the early childhood, but they don't have anything else with the education. Maybe on the table like this, we would have been having government and experts discussing, how about we probably take the infrastructure to the county and leave the staffing for schools, exam, and all that to the national government, so that the county government, we could give you more money and build as many schools as you can. Maybe we would not be stuck in the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling against the 1 kilometer. So for me, the two discussions are still not very right for the country, from my perspective. We need to abandon the whole thing. 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, abandoned. 1 man, 1 kilometer is abandoned. And then we are coming to the table and saying, what do we have now? How is service getting to the people? If it is about education, this has been the formula. So how do we better the existing formula? Because 1 man, 1 vote will take us to a politics that we will not get out of.
Yeah.
The politics we will get, whatever will get worse is when the National Bureau of Statistics will go back for the next census. It will create a huge problem, and even the census will not come out right because people will lie.
Yeah.
Trust me, my people in the village will say, we are 3 in Nairobi. If they are counting at home and my father is asked how many sons, he will count me 3 times. He will count Meshach, he will count Odede, he will count another person, so that we can have many men for many shillings.
That will be another tyranny of numbers.
Exactly.
And Mutaingunyi, of course, is the person who came up with this.
Exactly.
Samba, you know, if you look at the United States of America, its centers of population are in the western and eastern seaboard. Canada, much of its population is towards the south. Population distribution in countries is never even. How do these countries manage their distribution to the extent that you don't see people in, for example, in Australia, middle Australia is completely empty. People live on the cities at the side. How come Australians, Americans, and even Canadians, to give examples, how come they're not complaining about the same things? How come it's not 1 man, 1 shilling, it's not per kilometer? What's it going? Or is this just about CDF? We get rid of CDF and there's no problem.
Not quite. I think you've actually given very good examples of where systems are working. I think I'm a student of one of these books. One of my favorite books is Why Nations Fail. And that book is centered around an analysis of the two sides of Mexico, you know, the Nogales and this other side. One part is in the US, the other part is entirely in Mexico. So you find like this side of Mexico, the same people, same culture, same blood and everything, but they are suffering in poverty perpetually. The other side in the US, these people are living in prosperity. You know, their system is working, life is good. So they're trying to analyze what is it that distinguishes the two sides. These are same people. The conclusion was that you'd find like in the American side, their systems are working. You know, you don't have to really look for Joe Biden to come and solve a local issue because there's a system that has been put in place that all of us benefit from it. Whether you belong to government side, opposition side, it's an American system, custom-made to profit the American citizen. On the other side is a reflection of what we are having in this part of the world, you know? Systems that are dysfunctional, they are not responsive, they are not even working. And I think to respond to your question, the people who created the 2010 Constitution, or rather the drafters of the 2010 Constitution, had envisioned a country with systems functioning. Because once you have a system that is functioning, all this noise you are hearing will not be necessary. Like, for example, right now we are having a debate around the finance bill. And Kenyans are very agitated, not because they're not willing taxpayers, but they're actually questioning where is the value for my tax. You know, when you go to counties, the allocations in counties, you know, are huge, huge sums of money that were not, ordinarily not there in the past. I mean, on average, the least a country is receiving is over $1 billion. In the previous dispensation, counties were barely getting even 100, 200 million. So why is it that even with this additional allocation, we are still not getting it right? And that's why I'm saying the debate, 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. First of all, I feel like it disadvantages people like children. You know, children don't have votes. So where does that place them in this discussion? Number 2 is misplaced because it doesn't really emanate from a point of having assessed the weaknesses of the current system. Because I don't think it's the resource allocation problem. The problem is who are we entrusting with our resources? And how are they managing these resources? Why is it that I come from Busia County? My people are still struggling, you know, with basic things like even just access to health facilities. Yet healthcare is a devolved function. Yet there's a significant allocation. Yet Busia County does not really need all the big budgets, you know, to revolutionize it. Just simple steps, simple allocations within the county should have made us see the difference in that county. So I think, Mark, this debate is misplaced because it doesn't have the proper grounding in terms of assessment. We are debating something from an emotive point of view. We are responding to a political narrative that is supposed to benefit individuals, not even the community. Because I can tell you, if you go to central Kenya, you know, you remember some of the people fronting these discussions are the owners of the shareholding discussion, you know. They said this is a government of shareholding. And that means that the central Kenya ideally are actually getting bigger shares. You've had somebody like Moses Kuria, even just awakening the consciousness of the central people, asking them, how is it that we are complaining when, if we are talking about even just allocation, who is the chairman of budget? He's from central Kenya. Who is the chairman of finance? from central Kenya. So that's what I'm saying. I think Kenyans, we just must allow ourselves to be a bit more careful, falling into the trap of political narratives that are not sound to benefit you and me.
Well, Banasamba, we need to take a break. And on that note, we are going to come back on the issue of the economy. Taxation, the Finance Bill 2024-2025. Yes, we are moving from one man, one shilling to asking ourselves that there are 20 million registered voters in Kenya, but we only have 5 million paying taxes. Perhaps instead of paying taxes, we should turn voters into registrars in the KRA book. See you guys after the break. And remember, you are able to call in 30 minutes into the show. After this hour, you are able to call in. We will pick up your calls and let's talk money when we come back after the break.